Can you hear me now?
Yay!
I can hear me too.
Lay down, miss.
Sit down, please. Okay, what I was saying, that this is really a study group for why I wrote the book. It's not about the book. But I do have some books here, and after we're done, if you do want to have one signed, I'll be happy to sign one for you. And now the question is, why did I write a book? You might think that writing a book is a way to make money. A lot of people have that conception. It's not true. There are people that write a book, but we're not all Joe Rollins. Joe Rollins is the lady that wrote the Harry Potter books. And she turned out to be, I think, one of the most, second richest woman in the world. And coming from poverty. She was on welfare when she wrote the first book. But that's about as likely to happen as winning the lottery in every state and only buying one ticket. That's the way that happens. It's very, very weird and strange. But there's always somebody at the top. I'm not at the top. And the reason I wrote the book is because as a young man, 17 years old, towards the end of World War II, I joined the Navy while I was still in high school, and joined it, and I was going to report to duty after I graduated high school. Both wars were still on. The Pacific War was quite hot. The war in Europe was starting to wind down a little bit, but the Battle of the Bulge hadn't happened yet. So it was quite a serious situation. I named my book The Reluctant Sailor because I was very reluctant to join the Navy, with good reason. So now, funny things happen to me that I interpreted as funny. They could have been very frightening. I was 17. I was the son of an immigrant family. I'm a first-generation American. And this war popped up where Hitler wanted to kill everybody. So these things that happened were frightening, but I decided to label them as humorous. It's much easier to remember things that are funny than to remember things that terrify you. I wrote out a sheet on this. I'm diverting from it completely. But I want to also tell you if there's anything you do not understand or you want me to repeat or you want me to clarify, just ask me. I'll do the best I can. So, now, I had all these stories, and I loved telling them. As they happened, I would tell them to my shipmates and to my friends in the service, and everybody would get a good laugh out of it. After I got out of the service, I would tell the stories to my family and my friends, and I had a lot of fun telling the stories. Then I remarried, my wonderful wife Elaine and I married, and we had 4 daughters. And the kids used to hear the stories when I would tell them to friends, and they would start telling the same stories to their friends. And as I listened, I heard they didn't have all the facts exactly correct. So they would correct them and tell them, no, that's not exactly the way it happened. If you want to tell a story, this is what happened. And I would tell them the real version. Well, it didn't seem to take. They would still get the stories wrong. And they're pretty smart kids. So I figured I had to write she writes quilting books. Her name is Ami Sims. She was up in Flint, Michigan, and she was just excited about the stories, and she said, "You've got to make a book out of it." So I had to write more stories. And it was just so interesting how easily it came back to me 50 years later. I remembered all the details of all these stories. Partly because I used to tell them, and partly because when I started typing it, it slowed down enough because I typed very slowly. I could remember all the details. It just came right back. It's flooding into my memory. So when I had 180 pages written, my niece said, "You got to make a book out of it now." And we did. There's a program in Word, Microsoft Word. It's not a program, it's just a way of writing it. It's called Half Page. And if you write it in that format, it's already in a book format. So that seemed to work out pretty good. And we had this sort of book written, and what do you do with it? Anybody can write a book, but what do you do with it? How do you get people to read the book? How do you get people to buy the book? God forbid. So we started exploring that, and we contacted some publishers. And at this point, I want to break for a minute and ask you all a question. How many of you people have thought of writing a book? No one? One person? There's one person. Okay. How many people would like to write a book someday? There we go. A little more interest. Well, I just want to tell you that today is the best time in the world to write a book. Computers are terrific. They make writing so easy. Even if you can't see, if you have a visual problem like I do, you can still write a book. There are programs available. One of them is called ZoomText, which enlarges a type that big so I can see it. And it also reads for you as you type. It tells you the letter that you typed. It tells you it reads the word after you type it. And then you can also set it just to read back what you had typed. So it eliminates the backache of going like this. So now we have to check into publishers. And if you think a publisher is there to make you rich and to publish your book, you're wrong. Publishers are there for one reason, and that is to make money. If they can make money on your book, they're very willing to do it. But you have to sign up with a publisher. And that means that you take your book, it's your baby, your child that you gave birth to, and you give it to the publisher, and he says, "I'm going to give you 5 or 10% of the profits." It doesn't sound like very much, but it's probably the best way to go for people that have their book accepted by a publisher. And that's not easy to do. And the other way to go is to publish it yourself. And that's what I elected to do because my niece, Ami Sims, had published 6 or 7 books of her own already on quilting. So she said, "I will publish your book for you." And that made it a little bit easier, plus the fact that she was doing an email newsletter to 20,000 quilters across the country. So she said, "I will mention your book in my newsletter." So I said, "Well, that's a pretty good deal." So that's what we did. We published the book. We had it proofread. All of my kids proofread it. My wife proofread it. Our friends proofread it. And then we hired a professional proofreader that Ami had. one mistake in the book on page 95. But that's a big job to do, and when a publisher does it for you, there's an enormous cost involved. And then how does a publisher really sell your book? He sells it